The year is 1969. The Vietnam War is at its peak, with over 500,000 American troops on the ground. Deep in the Central Highlands, near the Cambodian border, dense jungles hide enemy supply lines, hidden bunkers, and villages that shift allegiance with the wind. U.S. forces conduct search and destroy missions, sweeping through areas suspected of Viet Cong activity. Maps are critical, every hill, river, and hamlet marked for navigation and fire support. But sometimes, intelligence points to places that simply aren't there. Tonight's story comes from veterans of the 4th Infantry Division, who in the summer of '69 were tasked with securing a remote village that appeared on no official map. What they encountered wasn't just enemy fighters. Multiple soldiers from different platoons reported experiences that defied explanation. Whispers in the dark, figures that vanished into the tree line, and a sense of being watched by something ancient, something that predated the war itself. These accounts have been shared privately among veterans for decades, corroborated in letters and reunions. While the Army officially attributed anomalies to combat stress or booby traps, the men who were there know better. This is a story of soldiers facing not only a determined enemy, but something far older and more malevolent lurking in that forgotten village. What happens when disciplined infantry, trained to confront human threats, come face to face with the unknown? Let's hear it from the men who lived it. Chapter 1. Arrival in the Unknown. My name is Sergeant Michael Reyes, 4th Infantry Division, Alpha Company, 2nd Platoon. I was 22 years old in July 1969 on my first tour. Our boots were caked in red mud, rifles slick with sweat, and the air hung heavy with the stench of rot and Agent Orange. Every step was a gamble. Punji pits, tripwires, or snipers in the trees. But we pushed on, driven by orders and the fear of letting down the guy next to you. One morning, our platoon leader, Lieutenant Harlan, calls us in for a briefing under a makeshift tarp. The CO from battalion had patched through on the radio. Intel from ARVN scouts and aerial recon points to a village about 10 clicks west, tucked in a valley near the Cambodian border. Problem is, it's not on any map. Not the topo sheets, not the fire support grids, nothing in our S2 packets. No name, no coordinates marked. It's supposedly a relay point for NV supplies trickling down the Ho Chi Minh Trail, hidden in the folds of the mountains. Our mission: move out at first light, secure the village by dusk, search for weapons caches, tunnels, anything that screams enemy logistics hub. Hold until engineers chopper into survey and update the maps. Why the hell isn't it charted? I asked the LT, wiping sweat from my brow. He was a cherry officer, straight from the academy, but sharp. Classified, Sarge. Or maybe it's so remote even the locals forgot it. Doesn't matter, we go in quiet. No arty prep. Eyes on, weapons hot. I nodded, but it gnawed at me. Maps were our lifeline. Without them, we were blind to LZs, extraction points, or friendly fire zones. We saddled up and moved out in a staggered column, point man sweeping for booby traps with his bayonet. The jungle was a living nightmare. Triple canopy blotting out the sun, vines snagging our rocks, leeches dropping from leaves like rain, humidity pressed down like a wet blanket, turning our fatigues into second skins. Insects buzzed incessantly, and the ground squelched underfoot. We crossed swollen streams, forded knee-deep mud, and hacked through bamboo thickets that sliced our arms. No chatter, just hand signals and the occasional whispered hold up. By mid-afternoon, the terrain opened slightly. We crested a ridge, and there it was. The village sprawled in a shallow basin. Maybe 20 hooches clustered around a central clearing. Thatched roofs sagged under monsoon rains. Smoke curled lazily from cooking fires, and a small rice paddy shimmered in the fading light. Banana trees lined the edges, and a narrow trail snaked into the denser jungle beyond. But something was off. No villagers tending fields. No children playing. No water buffalo lowing. No dogs yapping at our approach. It was eerily silent, like the place was holding its breath. Spread out, secure the perimeter, LT Harlan ordered in a low voice. Reyes, take your squad north side. Clear hooch by hooch, watch for traps. I signaled Harris and Dawson forward, their M16s at low ready. We moved in bounding overwatch, hearts pounding. The air smelled of wood smoke and something metallic, like blood or rust. First hooch. Empty, mat on the dirt floor rumpled. A clay pot still warm over embers. Clothes hung on a line, drying in the humid breeze. "Where the hell is everybody?" Harris muttered, his young face pale under the camo grease. We pushed to the next structure. That's when we found him. An old man slumped in the doorway, throat slashed ear to ear. Blood pooled fresh on the threshold, flies already swarming. No rigor yet. He'd been alive hours ago, but no signs of a fight. No overturned furniture, no drag marks, no defensive wounds. "VC hit?" Dawson asked, scanning the tree line. I shook my head. No brass, no boot prints. "This is weird." We radioed it in. 1 KIA, civilian, apparent execution. Deeper in, the village felt more abandoned yet lived in. Altars in several hooches. Small bamboo shrines with rice offerings. Incense stubs burned to ash. Not standard Buddhist. These had strange carvings. Twisted faces, elongated figures that seemed to writhe in the shadows. Montagnard influence. The hill tribes had their own spirits. Animist rituals that clashed with the war's chaos. We found a few more bodies scattered, women, elders. All throats cut. No struggle evident. "Like they welcomed the blade," Harris whispered. As the sun dipped, casting long shadows, the air grew thicker, oppressive. A low hum vibrated through the trees, or maybe it was my imagination. No, whispers. Faint at first, like wind through leaves. But then words. Vietnamese, guttural, ancient sounding. Not the Saigon dialect I picked up from ARV and allies. Something primal, accusatory. "Sarge, you catch that?" Harris froze, rifle up. "Yeah, probably just the breeze." I sharp, mouth shut. Night crashed down like a curtain. We established a defensive logger in the clearing. Claymores wired, trip flares set, machine gun nests covering avenues of approach. Guys rotated watch. But sleep was fitful on poncho liners. The whispers intensified after midnight, circling the perimeter like invisible patrols. Distinct now names, commands. I couldn't tell. At 0200, Dawson shook me. "Sarge, movement." I grabbed my starlight scope, peered into the inky tree line. Figures, dozens, silhouetted against the faint starlight. Tall, slender, unmoving just inside the foliage. Not in uniform, no weapons visible. "Challenge 'em," I hissed. Dawson cupped his hands. "Lie, die. Halt or we fire." No response. They stood statue still, eyes perhaps glinting. Then, synchronized, they pivoted and dissolved into the undergrowth. Gone. No rustle, no tracks when we checked at dawn. The village felt alive now, watchful. What had we stumbled into? Not just a forgotten hamlet, but something erased from maps for a reason. And as the jungle stirred with first light, I knew this mission was far from standard. Chapter 2. The first night, I'm Specialist Tom Whitaker, radio telephone operator for 2nd Platoon, Alpha Company. Everybody called me Whit. I was 19, fresh out of AIT, and that PRC-25 radio on my back felt like it weighed more than I did. Carrying the company's lifeline through the jungle meant I was always near the lieutenant or the sergeant, listening to every transmission, every fragment of intel that came down from battalion. We'd finished clearing the village just before full dark. The bodies of the old man and the others had been zipped into ponchos and laid in a row near the edge of the clearing. No one wanted to bury them yet, partly because we didn't know whose side they were on, partly because digging graves in this heap meant more sweat and more noise. The lieutenant marked their positions for graves registration when they finally showed up, if they ever showed up. We set the perimeter tight. 2-man fighting positions every 30 meters. M60 crews covering the main trail in, and the rice paddy. Claymores daisy-chained along likely approaches. Trip flares tied low to bamboo. Reyes walked the line twice, checking fields of fire, making sure interlocking sectors were solid. Standard stuff. We'd done it 100 times. But this place felt different. The jungle pressed in closer than usual, like it was leaning over our shoulders. I dug my shallow ranger grave next to the lieutenant's command hooch, unhooked the radio, and stretched the long whip antenna up into a banana tree. Static hissed in my earpiece as I monitored the battalion net. Normal chatter, other units reporting sitreps, artillery checking in, medevac birds on standby somewhere far away. Then, just after 2,200, the static shifted. It thickened, like someone had turned up the gain on white noise. I adjusted the squelch, thinking moisture in the set. That's when the voice came through. "Get out." clear male American accent. Not on any frequency I recognized. I keyed the handset. Battalion, this is Alpha 26 Romeo. You copying? Nothing but that same heavy static. I switched to our internal platoon push. Lieutenant, you hearing this? Harlan crawled over. Helmet tilted back. Hearing what, Wit? I handed him the spare handset. The voice repeated, slower this time. This ground is not yours. The LT's face hardened. PsyOps. Charlie's got a transmitter somewhere close. Directional speaker maybe. He looked at Reyes across the clearing. Double the watch. Nobody fires unless they see flesh and blood. But it didn't feel like PsyOps. The voice knew my name next. Whitaker. Leave while you can. I felt the hairs on my neck rise. No one outside the platoon knew my last name on this op. Battalion called me by the radio call sign only. The whispers from the tree line started up again, louder now, overlapping with the radio. Vietnamese syllables mixed with something older, harsher. The air cooled fast, unnatural for the season. Guys shifted in their holes, fingers on triggers. Around 0100. Private First Class Ellis relieved Dawson on the listening post 50 meters out on the Northwest Trail. Good kid, farm boy from Ohio, always humming country tunes under his breath. He crawled out with his M16, a couple frags, and a starlight scope. We watched him disappear into the elephant grass. 30 minutes later, Dawson nudged me. Wit, Ellis should have clicked twice by now. Hourly check. I tried the platoon net. LP, this is Romeo. Sit rep. Nothing. I repeated louder. Static. Reyes was already moving. He grabbed Harris and me. We low-crawled out along the trail, weapons up, moving slow to avoid the trip flares. The moon was a thin sliver, just enough to make shadows dance. We found Ellis's position empty. His helmet sat upright in the grass like someone had placed it there deliberate. Rifle leaned against a stump, magazine still seated, safety on. No blood. No brass. No sign of struggle. Just boot prints, his, leading 10 meters deeper into the brush, then nothing. Like the ground swallowed him. Drag marks, Reyes whispered. I swept the light from my red lens flashlight. Negative. Just stops. We backed out slow, hearts hammering. When we reached the perimeter, the figures were there again. More this time. Standing just inside the tree line, motionless, spaced like sentries. Pale skin catching faint moonlight. No uniforms. No weapons we could see. Reyes raised his M16. Challenge. I called out, voice cracking a little. Lie, die. Identify or we open up. They didn't move. Didn't speak. Then one stepped forward. Just one, into the edge of the clearing. Tall, thin, head tilted like it was listening. Eyes too large, reflecting light wrong. Harris whispered, Sarge. The figure raised a hand, slow, palm out. Not surrender. More like warning. The radio in my hooch crackled to life behind us. Volume up from when I'd left it. Ellis's voice, calm and clear. They're here. Inside the wire. We spun. Nothing in the perimeter. No breach. When we turned back, the figures were gone. We pulled everyone in tighter. No more LPs. Back-to-back watches. Ammo counted and recounted. No one slept. Just before dawn, the voice on the radio spoke once more. You woke them. Then silence. And somewhere out in the dark, I swear I heard Ellis scream, just once, cut off sharp like a blade. Chapter 3. Marks in the dark. My name is Corporal James Klein, combat medic, 2nd Platoon. They called me Doc. I'd been in country 8 months by then, long enough to see more than my share of bullet holes, shrapnel wounds, and malaria cases. I'd patched guys up under fire, called in dust-offs while tracers zipped overhead, and written too many letters home for mothers who'd never see their sons again. But nothing prepared me for what started happening in that village after Ellis vanished. Dawn broke gray and misty, the kind of light that makes everything look sick. We pulled the perimeter in even tighter. No more listening posts. Just a tight circle around the central clearing with overlapping fields of fire. The lieutenant radioed battalion again, voice steady but tight. Request immediate extraction. Village secured but multiple anomalies. 1 man missing. Battalion came back with the same line. Hold position. Intel team en route. Possible high-value site. Combat fatigue noted. I could hear the disbelief in the RTO's voice on the other end. Morale was sliding fast. Guys who'd laugh off incoming mortars were jumping at every leaf rustle. Reyes and the LT walked the line constantly, keeping voices low, reminding everyone to stay frosty. We posted double watches. No one alone, even for a piss call. I broke out the morphine, syrettes, and tranquilizers from my aid bag. But nobody wanted them yet. Taking a downer in Indian country was asking for trouble. Mid-morning, Private Harris came to me at the makeshift aid station I'd set up in one of the less damaged hooches. He was pale, sweat beading on his forehead despite the relative cool. "Doc, you gotta look at this." He pulled up his sleeve. 3 parallel scratches ran from his elbow to wrist, deep, red, already swelling. The edges were ragged, like claws, not a blade. Pus starting to form. Woke up with them. Didn't feel nothing till an hour ago. It burns now. I cleaned it with iodine. Shot him penicillin. Bandaged tight. "You roll on something in the night? Punji steak?" He shook his head. I was in my hole the whole time. Dawson was right next to me. He saw me wake up. Said I was thrashing, muttering in my sleep. But nothing got near us. By noon, 2 more guys showed up with the same marks. Different arms, different legs, but identical 3 lines. Evenly spaced, deep enough to hit muscle in places. No one remembered being touched. No tears in clothing to match the wounds. I reported it to the LT. He logged it as possible insect bites or allergic reaction. But we all knew better. That afternoon we conducted a more thorough sweep, looking for tunnels or caches to justify our presence. Found a few spider holes, some rice stores, a couple rusty AK magazines, but nothing big. No documents, no radios, no fresh NVA sign. Just more of those strange little shrines in the hooches. Incense long cold, offerings of rice and beetle nut gone moldy. The carvings on the bamboo altars seemed to shift when you weren't looking directly at them. Faces in agony, mouths open like screaming. Night came again, faster than it should. The temperature dropped sharp, breath fogging in the air. We burned hooch thatch for warmth. Small fires only. No light discipline broken. The whispers started earlier this time, circling the perimeter like a patrol. Not wind. Words layered, overlapping, some Vietnamese, some in a clicking tongue I'd never heard. I was on watch with Dawson around midnight, sharing a foxhole near the rice paddy dike. We heard it first, crying. Soft, like a child. Coming from inside one of the hooches we'd cleared twice. I swept my red flashlight, nothing. The crying stopped, then started again outside, moving toward the graves we'd found behind the village. Dawson looked at me. "Doc, tell me you hear that." "Yeah. Stay here. Cover me." I moved out slow, M16 up, Dawson tracking me. The crying led me past the burned-out hooches to the burial mounds. Moonlight filtered through clouds just enough to see shapes. Small figures kneeling at the graves, digging with their hands. Children. 5, maybe 6 of them. Bare backs turned to me, skin pale and dirty. I froze. "Hey, lie die." They stopped. Turned slow. Faces wrong, sunken, eyes too large, mouth stretched. Skin hanging loose like old cloth. One opened its mouth wider than should be possible. No sound. I backed up step by step, heart slamming. When I reached Dawson, he was white as rice paper. "You saw him too?" "Yeah." We didn't tell the whole platoon. Reyes said keep it quiet. No need to feed the fear. But word spreads fast in a small unit. The real trouble started after 0300. Guys waking up screaming. Private Lopez first, bolted upright, clawing at his throat. "Get it off. It's choking me." We pulled him down, held him till he stopped thrashing. No marks on his neck then, just red eyes and shaking. An hour later, another. Then a third. I ran out of tranquilizers fast. Just before dawn, one of the new guys, kid named Ramsey from California, emptied a full magazine into the hooch he was sharing with 2 others. Screamed something was on his chest, crushing him. When we got there, he was dead on his poncho liner. Bruises around his throat, clear finger marks. 4 on one side, thumb on the other. Too large for human hands. No breach of perimeter. No footprints in the soft dirt. We zipped him up with the villagers. As the sun rose, I looked around at the platoon. Hard men, good soldiers. Now hollow-eyed, jumping at shadows. Fingers never far from triggers. Whatever was here, it wasn't done with us. Chapter 4. The Hidden Shrine. I'm Lieutenant David Harlan, Platoon leader for 2nd Platoon, Alpha Company, 4th Infantry Division. West Point class of '68, commissioned at 22. And by summer 1969, I had been in Vietnam less than 4 months. I'd led patrols, called in arty, taken casualties. But I still believed in the mission, in the chain of command, in the idea that if we just held long enough, did our jobs right, we'd get out with all our men. That village changed everything. By the 3rd day, we were down to 28 effectives. Ellis missing, Ramsey dead by strangulation, 3 more on light duty with infected scratches and high fevers. I radioed battalion every few hours. Village secured. No significant enemy contact, but heavy psychological strain. Request immediate relief in place. Every time the answer came back the same: hold, intel team delayed by weather. Continue search for caches. I could hear the skepticism in the battalion S3's voice. He thought we were cracking under pressure. That morning, I ordered a final, thorough sweep. Every hooch, every paddy dyke, every clump of bamboo. We had to find something tangible: documents, weapons, radios, anything to justify why we were still here bleeding men for a ghost village. Reyes took 1st Squad north. Whitaker and the radio stayed with me in the center. We flipped over sleeping mats, probed floors with bayonets, pulled down false walls, mostly empty. A few rusted tools, moldy rice, personal items abandoned in haste. The bodies of the villagers were starting to bloat in the heat. The smell clung to everything. Around noon, Private Lopez called me over to the largest hooch at the eastern edge. It had been the headman's place, bigger, better built, with woven reed walls instead of just thatch. "Sir, you need to see this." The floor in the rear corner sounded hollow when you walked on it. We pried up woven mats and found a trapdoor, solid teak planks, hinged with leather, concealed perfectly. Below, stone stairs descending into darkness. Not a tunnel. Something older. The air that rose up was cool, dry, carrying a faint smell of earth and old blood. I looked at Reyes. "Your call, Sarge." He checked his watch, then the sky. "We got a few hours of daylight left. Let's clear it." We went down single file, me, Reyes, Lopez, Harris, Dawson, carbide lamps and flashlights cutting the gloom. 10 steps down, the stairs open into a chamber maybe 20 feet square. Stone walls carved, not built. Blocks fitted without mortar, covered in reliefs. Elongated figures with oversized eyes. Mouths open in silent screams. Hands raised as if warding something off. In the center, a low altar of black stone, stained dark across centuries. Stacked along the walls, human skulls. Dozens. Some ancient, yellowed, others fresher. Flesh remnants still clinging. Not VC, not NVA. This was something predating the French. Maybe predating everything we'd ever fought over here. On the altar lay offerings. Beetle nuts, rice wrapped in banana leaf, a rusted French bayonet, and, fresh, a strip of OD green cloth torn from an American uniform. Blood soaked into it, still tacky. "Jesus," Lopez whispered. Harris reached out to touch a carving. Reyes slapped his hand away. "Don't." That's when the whispers stopped being whispers. They became voices, dozens, hundreds, rising from the walls themselves. Not through the air. Inside our heads. Vietnamese, but old, guttural, layered with pain and rage. I caught fragments. Intruders, defilers. Return what was taken. We backed toward the stairs. The temperature plummeted. Breath fogged. Flashlight beams dimmed like batteries were dying. Then the screaming started. Not human. Not animal. Something else. We bolted up the stairs, slammed the trapdoor, piled sandbags and ammo crates on top. Back in the sunlight, we stood panting, staring at each other. No one spoke for a long minute. Whitaker ran up, radio handset extended. "Sir, battalion wants an update." I took it, tried to keep my voice level. "Tell them we found a possible archaeological site. Request immediate extraction. This position is compromised." Static. Then the voice on the radio, clear, calm, not the battalion RTO. "You opened it. Now they walk." The handset went dead. Batteries fresh that morning. That night the figures didn't stay in the tree line. They came into the clearing. Not running. Walking slow, deliberate. Pale, naked, skin hanging loose. Eyes reflecting our small fires like animals. Dozens. More parring from the jungle every minute. We opened fire. M16s on full rock and roll, M60s hosing tracers, grenades cooking off. They fell, staggered, dropped, but where bodies should have lain, only smoke or shadow dispersed. No blood on the ground come morning. One got through. Grabbed Lopez around the throat before Harris blew it apart with a shotgun blast. Lopez screamed, his skin blistered where it touched him. Burns like acid. We dragged him back, poured water, morphine. But he was gone in an hour. Last words. They're guardians of the dead. We woke them. I looked at what was left of my platoon, hard men, good men, now shaking, praying, some crying quietly. I knew then. This wasn't a supply hub. It wasn't even a village anymore. It was a graveyard. And we just desecrated its heart. Chapter 5. The Burning. Sergeant Michael Reyes again. By the fourth day in that village, we weren't a platoon anymore. We were a handful of exhausted, terrified men holding rifles we barely trusted to protect us from what was coming. Half the squad was down, fever from the scratches, shock from the losses, or just sitting with blank stares, rocking slowly. We'd lost Ellis, Ramsey, Lopez. 3 good men gone, and not one round of enemy fire to show for it. The radio kept promising relief soon, but soon in Vietnam could mean days, weeks, never. Lieutenant Harlan called the NCOs together just after dawn. His eyes were red-rimmed, face drawn tight. The West Point polish was gone. Battalion stalling, he said flat out. They think we're hallucinating from bad water or combat stress. Intel team still grounded by weather. He paused, looked at the trapdoor we'd barricaded with everything heavy we had. We can't stay here another night. Not after what came out of that hole. Whitaker nodded slow. Radio's dead half the time anyway. Keeps picking up. Voices. Doc Klein spoke up. Men are dying, sir. Not from bullets. From whatever this place is doing to them. The LT looked at me. Recommendations, Sergeant? I didn't hesitate. Burn it. All of it. Deny the site to the enemy. Call it a hot LZ, force extraction. If we torch the hooches, the shrine, everything, maybe whatever's here loses its anchor. Harlan stared at the ground a long moment, then nodded. Do it. We moved fast. Stripped rucks down to ammo and water. Stacked the rest in the central clearing. Piled thatch from the roofs. Broke open crates of rice. Doused everything with diesel from the cooking fires the villagers had left. Doc Klein poured the last of the medical alcohol over the barricaded trapdoor. We rigged white phosphorus grenades as incendiaries. Pull the pin. Cook off 2 seconds. Toss into the hooches. WP burns hot enough to melt steel. I walked the perimeter one last time. Checking claymores were pulled in. Trip flares disarmed. Guys moved like ghosts. No banter, no complaints. Just grim purpose. At 1400 we lit it up. First the WP grenades popped with that distinctive crack. Then the whoosh as flames caught. Black smoke boiled into the sky, thick and greasy. Hooch after hooch went up, roofs collapsing in showers of sparks. The heat drove us back to the edge of the clearing. We formed a hasty perimeter facing outward, rifles ready. That's when the screaming started. Not human. Not anymore. Hundreds of voices rising from the flames, from the ground itself, from inside our skulls. Layered, overlapping, rage, grief, accusation. The carvings on the burning bamboo seemed to writhe as they blackened, faces twisting like they were trying to escape the fire. The figures came then. Not from the tree line this time. From everywhere. Pouring out of the smoke, out of the burning hooches, out of the very air. More than we'd ever seen, tall, pale, elongated, eyes glowing like embers. They didn't charge. They walked through the flames untouched, arms outstretched. We opened fire. Everything we had left. M16s hammered on full auto. Magazines dumped and slammed home again. The M60 crews hose belts of 7.62 until barrels glowed cherry red. Tracers arsed into the smoke. Grenades cooked and thrown. The noise was deafening. Muzzle flashes strobing in the daylight. They fell by the dozens, staggered, crumpled, dissolved into black ash that blew away on the hot wind. No blood. No bodies left behind. Just more coming. Harris went down screaming, 3 of them on him at once. Dawson emptied a shotgun into them point blank. Blew them apart in sprays of shadow. We dragged Harris back. He was burned where they'd touched him, skin sloughing off like wet paper. The flames roared higher, unnatural, feeding on something more than wood and thatch. Then, Sudden as a switch flipped, it stopped. The screaming cut off. The figures vanished mid-step, like film burning in a projector. Smoke hung thick, but the voices were gone. Silence so complete we could hear the crackle of cooling embers. We stood there panting, ears ringing, staring at the ruins. Nothing left but charred posts, glowing ash, and the stone stairs leading down to the shrine. Now open, the barricades scattered like paper. The trapdoor was gone, burned to nothing. The chamber below exposed, altar cracked by heat, skulls blackened but intact. Whitaker's radio crackled, first clear signal in days. Battalion frantic. Alpha 2-6, we see heavy smoke. Report status over. Harlan grabbed the handset, voice raw. Village destroyed by suspected enemy action. Request immediate emergency extraction. Multiple KIA. Site no longer tenable. This time they didn't argue. Choppers inbound. Hot LZ, guns up. We held the ash pile till the Hueys came thundering in, door gunners laying suppressive fire into the tree line out of habit. We loaded the wounded first, then the dead in body bags, then the rest of us piled in like sardines. As the bird lifted, I looked down one last time. The village was gone. Jungle already creeping in, vines curling over the blackened ground like it had never been there. Smoke rising straight into the still air. But for a second, just a second, I thought I saw them. Standing at the edge of the clearing. Dozens. Hundreds. Watching us go. Not angry anymore. Just waiting. Some places aren't meant to be found. And some things, once woken, don't go back to sleep just because you burn their house down. Chapter 6. Echoes on return. Specialist Tom Whitaker again. Most of us who made it out of that village finished our tours and rotated home by late 70. Some extended. Some re-upped. Some couldn't stay away from the war, no matter how bad it got. Me, I tried civilian life for a few months, college on the GI Bill, a job stocking shelves at night. But the dreams wouldn't stop. The village burning. Figures standing in the smoke. Ellis calling my name over a dead radio. I started drinking heavy, picking fights, waking up screaming. The VA said PTSD, gave me pills that dulled everything, but didn't quiet the whispers. In early 71 I went back. Second tour. Volunteered for the 4th Infantry again. Same area of operations. Told myself I needed to face it, prove it was just combat stress. Bad water, mass hysteria. Whatever lie let me sleep for 5 minutes. They assigned me to a different company. But the Central Highlands hadn't changed. Same red mud, same triple canopy, same smell of rot and cordite. One night in August, battalion tasked our platoon with a long-range recon. Grid coordinates I recognized before the lieutenant even finished reading them. 10 clicks from the Cambodian border. The same valley. I didn't say anything at first. Just checked my map. Heart already pounding. We humped in over 2 days, cautious, avoiding trails. When we crested the final ridge and looked down, I knew I hadn't imagined the scale of it. The basin was there, rice paddy overgrown, but still visible. But the village, nothing. Jungle had swallowed it whole in less than 2 years. Vines thick as my arm draped over what might have been hooch foundations. Trees pushing up through the clearing. Saplings where we'd stacked the dead. No scorch marks, no ash. Like the fire had never happened. The lieutenant set us in a night logger on the opposite ridge, overwatching the valley floor. Standard cloverleaf patrols during the day, no contact. No sign anyone had been there since us. I kept it together, did my job, ran the radio like always. But when night fell, it started. First the temperature drop, sharp, sudden, breath fogging in August heat. Then the whispers, soft at first, circling the perimeter just like before. Vietnamese mixed with that older tongue, layered, patient. Guys shifted uneasy, blaming wind or imagination. The new cherries hadn't heard the stories. The old hands pretended they didn't recognize it. I sat with the PRC-25 in my lap, monitoring the net. Static built slow, then the voice came through, clear, American. Whitaker. My name. Same tone as before. I didn't respond, just stared into the dark. Around 0200, the figures appeared. Not many this time. A dozen, maybe less. Standing in the valley below, spaced out where the hooches used to be. Pale in the moonlight, unmoving. Watching up at us. One of the new guys spotted them first. Sarge movement in the Ville. The platoon sergeant crawled over. Peered through the starlight. Negative. Jungle shadows. But I saw them clear. One stepped forward, taller. Head tilted like it was listening. Raised a hand slow, palm out. Not threat. Invitation. I felt it pull, like a riptide. Stand up. Walk down the ridge. Join them. I don't know how long I sat there frozen. Minutes. Maybe longer. Then the radio spoke again. Ellis's voice, calm as ever. Come back, Wit. We're still here. I dropped the handset like it burned. Grabbed my M16. Worked the charging handle just to hear the mechanical clack ground me. The platoon sergeant noticed. You good, Wit? I lied. Yeah. Just static. At first light, the figures were gone. Valley empty again. That afternoon, I called in a false contact report. Suspected NV movement on an adjacent grid. Requested immediate pullout to reinforce another unit. The lieutenant bought it. Battalion approved. We exfiled fast. No questions. I never went near that valley again. Finished the tour in the lowlands. Safer AOs. Counting days. Some places keep what they take. Ellis Ramsey Lopez. The villagers with their throats cut. And whatever was there before any of us. They're still waiting. Patient as stone. If you go back, they know your name. And they don't forget. Chapter 7. What remains? Lieutenant David Harlan. Retired now. It's been over 50 years since that summer in the Highlands. But some things don't fade with time. They settle deeper, like shrapnel working its way to the surface. I've sat through reunions, VE counseling, quiet nights with a bottle, trying to make sense of what happened to us in that place that wasn't on any map. We never spoke about it officially. The after-action reports were clean. Village destroyed during suspected VC ambush. Multiple KIA from enemy action and accidental causes. Combat stress noted. Medals for valor issued to a few. Ellis, Ramsey, Lopez. Their names went on the wall with the rest. No mention of figures in the night. Voices on dead radios. Or a shrine older than the war itself. But in private, we talked. The survivors, Reyes, Whitaker, Klein, a handful of others, met up over the decades. First at division reunions, then smaller gatherings as the years thinned our ranks. We'd sit around a table, beers in hand, and the stories came out the same every time. No embellishment. No need. The details matched too perfectly. The whispers starting soft, the pale figures at the tree line, the scratches appearing in sleep, the way the fire silenced them but didn't end them. Reyes passed in '98, heart attack, but not before telling me one last time. Lieutenant, we didn't win that one. We just left. Whitaker made it to 2015. He sent me an email a month before he died. Said the dreams had started again. Stronger. Ellis calling him by name, telling him it was time to come back. He asked if I'd ever felt the pull. I lied and said no. Doc Klein's still around, last I heard. Lives quiet in Oregon. He told me once the marks never fully healed for some of the men. Scars stayed raised, pale, 3 parallel lines. Said a couple guys woke up with fresh ones years later, no explanation. I've wondered 1,000 times what that village really was. Montagnard sacred ground? An ancient burial site disturbed by the war's chaos? Some French colonial atrocity buried and forgotten? Or something older? Spirits the locals knew to leave alone? Boundaries we'd crossed without knowing the rules? The rational part of me, the officer who believed in grids and fire support and clear objectives, wants to call it mass hysteria. Bad water, combat fatigue, enemy psyops pushed to the extreme, sleep deprivation and fear doing what they always do to fighting men. But I was there. I saw the figures walk through fire untouched. I heard the voices speak in tongues no ARVN interpreter could translate. I watched good soldiers die without a single enemy round fired. And sometimes, late at night when the house is quiet, I still hear it. A whisper at the edge of hearing. Not angry anymore. Patient. Waiting. Vietnam took a lot from us, friends, years, pieces of our souls. But that village took something different. It marked us in a way the war never could. Some battles aren't about ground won or lost. They're about what you bring home with you. And some things follow. Be careful what earth you disturb in war. The dead have long memories, and they don't always stay buried.